Hi, Todd. It's great to see you. And thank you so much for being here today and giving us some of your time to indulge us in a conversation. We are going to be joined by people really from all over the world, the Fitzgerald Society members, who are playing a game. And thank you for indulging us in playing this game. Where in the world are Scott and Zelda? So I'm going to put up on the screen the where in the world are Scott and Zelda, just because we have to have official beginning. And then I know that you have three clues that are going to help us guess as to your location. So let's get started with that.
Wonderful. So my first clue is that I'm in a city that sounds like it's in Russia, but it's not. And by a body of water that washes up on Mexican shores, but it isn't Mexico.
Russia and Mexico seem to have nothing in common. So I'm guessing we're probably not ready to make a distinction yet. So how about giving us your second clue?
Sure. My second clue is that the Fitzgeralds were visiting a pink lady that's not a lady, and a pink castle that's really not a castle.
No lady, huh? And, it sounds like we're getting close because I know Scott had Gatsby in a pink suit, so that makes sense. And he used to write to Zelda about castles until she was annoyed with it. So I think we're getting towards his fictional vision. Anyone out there zeroing in on where Todd is? Or are we all stumped? Well, let's go on, Todd, to the third clue.
The final clue is that the site is next to a town that sounds like it's named after a barbecue.
A barbecue. Well, Zelda's from the South, and the South loves barbecue, but I'm trying to put all these three clues together to make some sense. And I think you might have stumped some of us for sure. But how about you tell us the answer to the clues and then reveal where you are and how that's connected to Scott and Zelda?
Absolutely. The answer to the first question is that I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, on the Gulf of Mexico.
Aha.
The second answer relates to our hotel's nicknames, the Pink Lady, the Pink Castle, or even in most recent years, the Pink Palace. And the third question is tied into our neighboring town, which is called Paso Grill, whose township is just past our hotel, the Don Cesar.
Isn't that an interesting name for a town, Paso Grill? All right, well, so then now it's time for the big reveal. Tell us who you are, what your job is, and most importantly, or at least equally as importantly, where you are.
Absolutely. My name is Todd Gerke. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at the Don Cesar Hotel in St. Pete Beach, Florida.
That sounds like a great job. And when you get frustrated with your job, you can just go outside, walk those beautiful sandy white beaches and look at the ocean and the sky. Not too bad, not too bad.
No, I'll tell you, we opened in 1928, so we've been here a long time. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't pass over the bridge coming into the hotel. And when you see the Don Cesar from a distance, as I'm sure F. Scott Fitzgerald did back when he arrived, it's pretty spectacular.
It is spectacular. I have to say, I've been coming there almost since 1928, and I can attest to how spectacular it is. Well, I'm going to put up a slide of some photos that you sent that are really early photos, I think, from the Don Cesar. So tell us a little bit about the background of the hotel.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, we opened in 1928. So we are very much in what they call certainly the Gatsby era, which is, again, in relative to our conversations today. A very special place. When it opened in 1928, it was definitely the who's who of America was coming and staying with us here. We were the true, one of the first American true Florida beach resorts in that the hotel was open for 3 months a year, January, February, and March. It was closed for the rest of the time. And it was literally a place where families of the well-to-do, affluent folks in America were coming and spending time back then. So pretty special place for sure.
Wow, I didn't know that it was closed most of the year. That sounds economically difficult to maintain.
Definitely an interesting business model for sure.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, so do you have a list of some of the, besides Scott and Zelda, of course, some of the guests who people might know?
Absolutely. I mean, from that time, again, we had a lot of the retail store families, you know, the Macy's of the world, the Rockefellers, all those folks were here. We have Scott and Zelda were here as well. You know, we hosted a lot of the New York Yankees because they were playing at the time for spring training in the late 20s and 30s down here in St. Petersburg. So they spent some time with us. Clarence Darrow, there's a lot of traditional singers and songwriters and things. So just a really interesting time for us for sure.
Yeah, oh, that's a great history. And I'm sure history continues, the who's who still coming there.
It does.
Well, we know we can time Scott and Zelda's stay at the Don Cesar because he wrote a letter on the hotel stationery. So on the left here of the slide, I have this is a typed copy. Obviously, he hand wrote from the stationery on the Don Cesar, but this is a letter to Maxwell Perkins, his editor. In the opening paragraph, he's talking about that he's working on his novel Tender as the Night, and he's giving Perkins suggestions that he should go on vacation, probably because Scott is sitting in this lovely hotel on vacation. And then he's talking about how he's writing Hollywood Revisited. He had just come from work in Hollywood before they came to the Don Cesar to vacation. And then toward the end, he says, "Where the hell are my Scandinavian copies of The Great Gatsby?" I'm not sure what Scott was going to do with Scandinavian copies of The Great Gatsby, but obviously it was on his mind. So there's the letter. And on the right is a beautiful side view of the Don Cesar in all its pink glory. So Scott and Zelda, as I said, were there during, they were there actually January 15th, 1932. So it's the beginning of the Depression. And they write a story later. It's actually in a collection of stories about the different hotels that they had visited over the years. And it's called Show Mr. and Mrs. F to Number, and there were lots of hotel room numbers. So this is what they said about their stay at the Don Cesar. "We went to Florida. The bleak marshes were punctuated by biblical admonitions to a better life. Abandoned fishing boats disintegrated in the sun. The Don Cesar in Passagril stretched lazily over the stubbed wilderness, surrendering its shape to the blinding brightness of the Gulf. Opalescent shells cupped the twilight on the beach, and a stray dog's footprints in the wet sands staked out his claim to a free path round the ocean. We walked at night and discussed the Pythagorean theory of numbers, and we fished by day. We were sorry for the deep sea bass and the amberjacks. They seemed such easy game and no sport at all. Reading the Seven Against Thebes, we browned on a lonely beach. The hotel was almost always empty, and there were so many waiters waiting to be off that we could hardly eat our meals." Well, I imagine all your guests discuss the Pythagorean theory while they're lying on the beach reading about Thebes, right? So because it's 1932 and we're post the opulent era, how might Scott and Zelda have known about the hotel? How might it have been advertised in the 30s? And what kinds of things besides lying on the beach and fishing might they have done while they were there?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You know, the interesting thing when you look back at that time is that St. Petersburg, Florida was actually very well known. The St. Petersburg Times was winning a ton of publishing awards. The Yankees and a lot of the teams were for the first time ever had started the Grapefruit League and were spending the springs down here as well during that time frame. So it was a pretty well-known area for kind of the who's who at the time. Thomas Rowe, who built the hotel and opened the hotel, he certainly was a very forward-thinking individual as far as the type of architecture that he selected and the way that the hotel looked. And he spent a lot of money marketing it to, the upper Midwest and the upper Northeast, and again, kind of the affluent who's who of the times to try to get them here for their winter getaways, for weeks on end where they would come and stay. So the hotel was actually very, very well known. It was also very remote. So there was nothing around the hotel at the time. It was kind of a standalone and an unbelievable piece of architecture. And so it just became very iconic, and people knew of it in advance of making the trip down. Certainly the beauty of the Gulf of Mexico, the warm air, the sunshine were things that Thomas Rowe would market to the general public as being a healthy environment, a restorative environment, and that definitely drove a lot of folks to come and make the trip and visit as well. And as anyone who's visited here knows, the beauty of the Gulf of Mexico waters are pretty remarkable. So once you do experience it, the word gets out and people tend to catch on.
Well, Florida's beautiful in January and February, two of my favorite months here. And do you have any records of the hotel where Scott and Zelda might have stayed, what their room number was, what their bar tab was, or their restaurant bill? I know the Fitzgerald Society has gone around the world to various places putting plaques up. We love putting plaques places where they were. And so if that happened to be information you had, we would love to come put a big plaque on the wall, but it's probably something hard to come by.
It is. In addition to the Fitzgeralds, we have, as I mentioned, a lot of others who have been here as well. And we do have a hard time when we look back at that history. The Don Cesar actually over the years has gone through a lot of changes. Thomas Rowe, who originally opened the hotel, actually passed away after about 10 years of operating the hotel. So a lot of the records and things that were there of the times, unfortunately, we just don't have access to anymore. We've definitely made the Fitzgeralds a part of our story. Just to give an example, we have a really nice framed piece of artwork, which is on the 5th floor of the building, which has a lot of Fitzgerald novels and things kind of showcased in it. It's definitely become a part of who we are. Certainly when you're a hotel and a brand which came to life in the Gatsby era, It is definitely something that we embrace, and certainly the notoriety of both of them is something that we utilize a lot.
I'm going to send us off into the sunset with this beautiful glowing picture. Thank you again for your time. We so much appreciate it, and for sharing your beautiful hotel for us.
Thanks so much, Gail. It's been a pleasure, and just appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Our pleasure.